My name is Chet Whittam. I'm the state architect, and I want to welcome you here to a day of, I think, some really exciting and some exciting and interesting information. I'm very, very pleased to have shared this partnership not only with DSA, but with the American Institute of Architects California Council and with the California Energy Commission. They've been great partners in the process. In addition to that, we were very, very lucky to have Tim Culverhouse, FAIA, as an editorial advisor, and more than that, he's been an integral part of the team, and we will be publishing this, and Tim will have a major piece of the publication process. In addition to that, we are very proud as well to have two contracting firms that are working with us, XL Construction and Neff Construction. They are assisting us in putting together cost estimates and life cycle cost analysis on various elements of what you're going to see today. I would be remiss if I did not thank Secretary Maribel Badger and Director Daniel Kim, who are part of my support team, or I support them, but actually they're supporting me a lot better than I'm supporting them. And I thank them for all of their work and all the things that they do to make this successful. We're also fortunate to have some sponsors, and you know that events like this cost money, and sometimes we just don't have the funding on a public service basis. And I want to thank Big Ass Fans. They've been a terrific group, as well as DPR, and let's give them a hand. I'm going to ask Paul Santos from Big Ass Fans to come up and speak for a moment. They're an interesting firm, and I have to tell you, it's the best marketing program I've ever seen. I mean, could you think of a better name to attract all of our attention other than Big Ass Fans? Paul?
Thank you very much. It's an honor and a privilege to be here. It's been great to sponsor. On behalf of Big Ass Fans, I want to thank everybody. I know quite a few of you in here. A lot of you have met me. I handle the West Coast when we're dealing with the architects and engineers. And I just wanted to let you guys know that the growth of this company has been largely behalf on some of the work that most of you guys have done. We started off as a small company. I've been with them for 9 years. I was employee number 68. We have over 850 now. And a lot of that is because of the architectural engineering community. You folks have the forward thinking to trust us and believe in us when it comes into design, whether it's schools, firehouses, or any type of other buildings. And I just wanted to say thank you. And keep an eye out for us. We've got more and more coming. I mean, we started off keeping cows cool a number of years ago, being the HVLS fan company, and just remember, you folks named us. You were the guys that called us Big Ass Fans, and we decided to stick with the names. So now we're able to work with you, with the folks in the schools. We started off in the cafeterias and the multi-purpose rooms, and now we're looking to the classrooms all over the country. California's been on the forefront of everything, and I handle the whole West, so they're starting to move out. You guys are teaching others, and it's just been a great experience. And I want to thank every one of you for allowing us to work with you. And I'm looking forward to working with all of you in the future. And just keep an eye on us. We've got more and more coming out to help you. Thank you.
I'm really excited about an event that's happening. If you'll see up in that corner over there, there are a group of youngsters that from Elliott Ranch Elementary School that are doing an amazing little thing. They are our future architects, our future engineers. Elliott Ranch Elementary School in Elk Grove, the principal, Brian McNeil, their parents. Why don't you stand up and let's give you a hand, and I'm going to talk about you in a minute. This group is participating in the Pacific Ocean Energy Swap, which is, they're becoming experts in sustainability and renewable clean energy, to how they can do this for schools, their schools. They're going to present at the Hawaii Energy Independence Organization. And I have to tell you, I asked them if I could go, and they said no. They're keeping it for themselves. Grab a flyer if you haven't picked one up. It's an interesting group of students that are amazing. They're doing great things. Listen to them. They know more about energy and about schools than I ever did at their age, and I'm really proud to be associated with them. They recently had a story on the Capitol Public Radio, and you might want to take a look at that as well. Governor Brown became a symbol, I think, not just for California, but for the nation, in trying to turn ourselves around and to become a green society and change the direction that we're in. And one of the perks that I get as an architect, as a state architect, is to be able to sit on a number of design juries where we get an opportunity to look at great new projects. And through this process for the last 4 years, we've seen a number of zero net energy buildings. And my colleagues sitting on the committees or on the juries, superintendents of schools, facilities directors, et cetera, have turned to me and said, Chet, they're great, they're wonderful, but we don't have $100 million projects and $80 million new projects. We have a lot of campuses with a lot of work on it, and we just don't have those. So that became the inspiration for this process. And I don't know if I'm sorry, I'm looking around to see whether Esteban Almanza is here, but he was the former deputy director, chief deputy, and he and I were sitting and having a drink talking about what this whole set of issues, and he said, why don't you do something? Why don't you go in this direction? I'll support you. So it was a great opportunity to sit down, and we started looking at the problem and looking at the issue. We have 10,000 campuses across the state of California for K through 12 and for community colleges, 10,000. And if each one of those campuses had 3 buildings, just 3 buildings, you'd have 30,000 buildings, and over a period of time, if you could save $10,000 a building per year over a 10-year period, you're talking about $3 billion that could be transferred from utility bills and maintenance to education, to the things that we're really care about, which is about children. That's what we're here for. We're not here for bricks and mortar, we're here for kids, and to try to educate them and give them an opportunity to grow in our society. So then some people say, well, wait a second, those numbers are kind of cockeyed, that's not going to make a great deal of sense. So I said, okay, what if it's 5 buildings, because it's probably a lot closer to 5, maybe even above that, and that would be 50,000 buildings, but what if it was only $3,000 per year per building? And over a 10-year period, again, $1.5 billion. We have an opportunity to make a big change. So I wanted to change the conversation of how we modernize and change our buildings. I wanted to make sure that everybody saw what the impact of design could be, not only on education, but on how we use energy and water, how they all could meld together, and how we could conceivably go after a zero net energy society, at least within our school districts. Is it possible? How much money is it going to cost? I think you're going to see some information that'll show you that over a 15-year period to 2030, we could really reach it on all of the buildings that are out there. But one of the important parts of changing the conversation is to stop thinking about it just as cost, but to think about it as investment. And there are some investments that are very hard to quantify. We'll talk about it in a minute, but it's a very important issue. So we looked at a magazine article. This was a magazine called School Planning and Management. And it's talking about the cost of flooring and how you can look at it over a longer period. So I just pulled out some extremes in both directions. If you use vinyl composition tile over the 50-year period, it costs you $1.85 a square foot. But if you use glazed porcelain tile, it's 36 cents a square foot. Now, I know that I don't often have that money in my budget to build it, but I use this one because it was a great opportunity to see how long-term investment, and our schools are lasting for 50 and 60 years, but how long-term investment will pay back rather dramatically. Those unquantifiable returns are really the important ones. How we can reduce illnesses and get better opportunities for student achievement. That's really what we're about. So we need to change that conversation and think more about what are we doing for the long term. So why did it wind up being called 7 by 7 by 7? Well, we looked at the 7 different environments across the state of California, ranging from desert to mountains. We looked at the different kinds of typologies or the different kinds of architecture. What do these buildings look like? They're different. They're different over a period of time. The construction materials are different as we go across. And we decided that the best thing that we could do would be to turn around and find 7 firms, really top-notch firms that are experienced in schools, but are also leaders in sustainability and in changing the direction of our times in terms of how we design buildings. And I'm really proud of those firms, and we've had an opportunity to go out and work with them. Some people think that an architect just meets with you and then runs back to his drafting board. He shows, that's my age. There's no more drafting boards. It's all on computer. But in any event, run back and start drawing. That's not the way it works. It really works by a collaboration of ideas. And so we met with architects and engineers and specialists looking at lighting and airflow and all kinds of stuff. And the only thing that was missing from this team was the school districts. And some people are saying, why is that the case? Well, I decided that it was really important to keep the buildings generic. And if we met with districts, we'd be working with their particular needs, which are really important, and they're important when we do a project. But this was about case studies. So we wanted to go back to the original buildings. We wanted to keep this rather generic and just use our judgment as to how we could make this thing work. And when projects are really built, obviously the owner is a major part of that team. Now, there's some things that are obvious, and you know them as well as everybody else around, that obviously you want to change the glazing. You want to make sure that there's proper insulation. You want to make sure that there's low flow faucets and toilets. Those are the obvious things, and everybody in the 7 teams included that in their work. And but there's some similarities in approach as well. Every one of the teams put educational quality at the top of the list. Everything we have to do, everything we do has to improve the quality of education. So we looked at all kinds of tools. How can we help change the discussion among students, among teachers, et cetera? And probably the biggest piece of this list that we've got here is behavioral modification. How do we change users and operators and maintenance and teachers and students? How do we change the conversation? How do we make sure that this thing works? And how do we make sure that we recognize that there are operational problems, that we have to pay for this? We've got to have staff to keep it going. There were other similar approaches. Long-term strategies. Again, our goal is 2030. We're looking, and the goal at the end of this part of the process is to start a process of trying to develop long-term management plans for energy, water, conservation, and sustainability in general. Every campus should have a master plan to reach zero net energy, or as close to it as possible, and to do it in a logical way, and most important, not stop it by making the wrong decisions as they go through. So we came up, there are really more questions than answers. We got a long way to go on this whole process. The architects that came on board, we asked them to do a number of things, come up with schematic design concepts. They went through 4 preliminary presentations in San Diego, Los Angeles, San Luis Obispo, and Berkeley. And here we are at the call to action. We need to make that change in our conversation where we go. And we need to collaborate with the entire construction team. That's another piece that's important. And finally, we're going to publish all of the things that you see here, plus some additional information on the internet, so it'll be available for everybody as we go through our changes over the next years. So here we are, 7 teams that are going to present to you a whole slew of ideas. I can tell you from my experience, over the 4 times, I learned something each time. However, be careful. We're feeding you or making you drink from a fire hose, because there's an incredible amount of information that's going to come forward.